it's not always about the content of what you do, but like who you are, like for better or worse. It's like you kind of have to have both. If you keep that secondary and you make the content first and create quality and provide value and build that foundation, then the rest may come later.
Welcome back to Business Talk, the TikTok marketing podcast for business owners and entrepreneurs who want real strategies to generate leads and sales directly from TikTok. I'm your host, Austin Armstrong, and I'll be interviewing real business owners from every industry that are leveraging TikTok to grow their business. You can connect with me on TikTok at SocialtyPro. Let's jump into it. Today's guest is Evan Lieberman, otherwise known as Evan the Counselor. He's a verified TikTok creator in the behavioral health and addiction industry with over 1 million followers. By day, Evan is a licensed mental health professional and licensed addiction counselor in Minnesota. After hours, his passion is creating content in the behavioral health space that is both educational and entertaining. And he does such a fantastic job at this. Evan, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's an honor. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So how did you first get a hold of TikTok? Like what made you want to tackle this platform of all the platforms out there?
Yeah, it's funny. The story is, right, I was riding my bike. I live in Minneapolis. I like to go around the river, right? And I would like listen to podcasts. And I was actually listening to a business podcast, listening to all sorts of stuff. And they had a guest, it was actually like real estate focused. I do some of that. And they brought a guest on and he talked about how like really quickly he built a following on TikTok. And it just put a light bulb up because I'd been like working on a book and I thought, hey, if I could start putting content, I have a bunch of random knowledge, and been doing this for a long time. And I thought, hey, maybe if I could build some kind of following, maybe that would help promote this book if I ever get that out. So that was the original idea. And I knew nothing about TikTok. I just thought it was like a dance app or whatever. But then I, had heard that it's, really extending to other areas. And so I just downloaded it and just started posting bad videos. And but yeah, that's how it started. So that was October 2020. I think is when October 14th is when I posted my first TikTok, and I left it up too, so you could go see it if you want.
I love that. I love to see the progression of where somebody started to the phenomenal success that you've had. Now, in this space in particular, in the behavioral health space, I know this space very well. You do such a phenomenal job communicating helpful educational content, as well as creating scenarios that are really relatable to people. Have you had video marketing experience before, or how did you sort of learn how to do what you do? How did you learn to communicate this way in a social media setting?
Yeah, I had no experience making videos, social media, anything like that. I just started posting videos, and then I think like everyone else, I got just sucked into TikTok, and just, was just consuming a ton of content and seeing what other people did and being like, oh, okay, I like that. Like this video is better than what I do, right? This looks better. This is more clever, right? And so then I'm like, how can I do that? Like, how can I execute that? Right. It took me like a couple months before I realized what a ring light is. And like, and, it's like warm lighting. It looks terrible in my living room, and the sound, I was like using my earbuds and wondering why it didn't sound good. And, eventually figured out, hey, I need a better mic, if I want to sound like these folks, if I want to start making like, good content. Cause like I believed in like what I was doing, and I believe that it was good, but it didn't have the execution. And just from practicing, and like you said, you could go through my page and just start going through the videos, and you could see the progression, just like timing and, it was just kind of learned by doing.
I love that. And do you actually record in your phone in the TikTok app, or are you recording externally and then sort of editing it and posting up? Or could you share a little bit about what your
Yeah, yeah,
creation
yeah.
process is like?
So for a long time, I always tried to do it in the app, right? And like up until like really recently, and still sometimes I will do it. I kind of have like a paranoid, not paranoid, but like uh, a superstition that the videos in the app do better. I don't know. I mean, I hear from a lot of it's not true, but like for whatever reason, the videos I do in the app frequently do better. And like I've started to get better at editing, and um, so I am starting to do more videos, like using like CapCut. A lot of people use that, and I'm really liking it. And like for doing YouTube videos too, for making a little bit more produced type content. But yeah, I use my iPhone. I just got the 13, and I'm finding you can make extremely quality videos. So it's crazy what you could do with your phone. Yeah, and I've just gotten like invested in mics and oh yeah, I just set up some new lights, and it's like my place is just looks like a studio at this point. With ring lights and box lights and mics, and I got like two bins full of like extensions and converting cables, and it's yeah. So
That's phenomenal. And how often are you shooting? Are you sort of batching your content, or have you
mm,
developed that habit that every morning I need to, make a new
yeah,
TikTok video? Or are you planning ahead a little bit? Could you
yeah.
outline a little bit about your process?
So that's what you should do.
There's no right or wrong answer here. It works differently
But
for everybody.
yeah, and that's yeah, I'm just like kind of disorganized because it's like, okay, I'm doing a podcast, I'm doing a YouTube, I have my TikTok, and then it's so much. Like I could do this full time so easily, and there's still always stuff that you can do. But I do try to have some system, and for me, it starts with writing. So like I try to write out first it starts with ideas, right? So if I have an idea, I write it down, and then I go through those and I say, okay, which one, just kind of go by gut. Yeah, which one do I feel like doing this week? Some of them I've had from months ago. And then I'll just start writing scripts. And for me, that is like the easiest part. Like I love writing. And so the scripts just come right out of my head, and they're like 80% done. And then as I do it, I tweak it and, go off a little bit off the cuff. So then once I have that, then I go to my least favorite part, which is filming, which is kind of crazy to me because, like, if you were to ask me before, I'd be like, oh my God, I would love to film and like do the acting or whatever. But like, it's such a chore for me. I don't know why, but I think it's just because I'm like alone, and then I'm like dealing with the lights. And then if I'm trying to be too close on a script, like I'm not good at remembering, like if I try to do a minute, like you'll see like a lot of my videos, very few lately are like a minute straight of me talking, and I do a lot of cuts. And I think it looks cool, and it's engaging and stuff, but like a lot of it is just because otherwise I will take my mic or phone and I will throw it across the room because I'm kind of a perfectionist, right? And
Mhm.
I mean, I've tried doing a whole minute, and it takes so many, and I'll be there for over an hour. So then I film, and then I really enjoy the editing process.
Mm.
Like I would have never guessed that. I mean, it makes sense, because it's like there's like that creative element and like the execution of it, and like I just get lost in it. Sometimes I probably do too much just because I lose all track of time. But yeah, that's kind of yeah, so that's my process. It just it's like these steps, and the one I get the most internal resistance on is the filming. Like yesterday, like I'm trying to do like on the weekends, I'm gonna have these like film
Mhm.
days. I'm just gonna knock them out, and then through the week, I don't have to have that stress because like the whole process on a video is like an hour and a half to 3 hours per video I do for TikTok. And I don't have time really during the week, and I like to get the videos out in the evening. And so I find that it's so much easier if I have videos ready to go, and then I could just edit it after work and just enjoy myself. So that's the ideal. Does it always look like that? No. Like yeah, like yesterday I was saying I was trying to like film like 3 or 4 videos, and I did like to 1.5, like all day, because I just like kept getting distracted and like, oh, I
Mhm.
can do this, or oh, I'm gonna edit this past video, or I'm just like literally in my head, it was like, all right, bud, it's 2 o'clock. How's the filming going? And I'm just like, great. I'm just all like in my stuff like that literally had that dialogue in my head like
Mhm.
three
Mhm.
times to myself. All right, yeah, you gonna do this? Like, all right, fine. Set the lights up, and and I have some scripts ready, but yeah, so it looks something like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. And has the type of content evolved as you've gotten better at this, and even more so based on how the response from people as well? Like, was it an immediate success for you, or did you sort of find a topic or category of content that really worked, and then you sort of doubled down on it? Or
Yeah.
what's your evolution of topics look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I want to say no, I was not an overnight success. But when you zoom out a little bit and you think about it, like I've been doing this for a little over a year. Like that's crazy. Like it feels like so long, but in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing. And I always think about that with TikTok. Everything is like everything is just quick, and it's like sugar highs. It's like ups and
Yeah,
downs, and everything just happens really
yeah.
fast. But it feels
Dopamine
like
hits.
yeah, it's like that, almost like a metaphor though, where it's like, you could get a lot of views and then little, and then you could grow really fast, just compared to the other social media where it's just more of a slow progression and just a slog. And TikTok, it's a little different. But anyway, so like in the grand scheme of things, yeah, it blew up pretty quick after 3, 4 months. And because I could remember like my friends started to realize, like I didn't tell anyone I was doing it. Like I told
Hmm.
no one. And then I started to like build like a little following. You get to 10,000, you could go live, or I don't remember what is 1,000, right? And then you're at 10,000, and then my friends show, oh, what are you at now? Oh, I'm at 10,000. Oh, I'm at 20,000. And then it just kind of exponentially grew. So as far as the content goes, you know, yeah, I think the response has shaped what I do, but I try not to let it that much.
Hmm.
Like I try to just do what I like what I
Hmm.
think is cool, like what I think would be of value. And it absolutely does shape people. And I've tried that and it doesn't really work that well.
Hmm.
Because like I could do one video in this like formula and it does really well. And I have had that with some videos where like I do like a two-parter, which like I don't love to do, it's kind of nerdy, but like 20 million views, and I'm like, okay, well, like I gotta, and then it works until it doesn't. So I've had videos of like various kinds be successful, which I really like I don't want to be a one hit wonder and just do the same thing. You have one viral video and then I just try to recreate it for the rest of my life. Like i just I'm just someone who likes variety, right? So some of the videos I do are purely educational, some are more entertaining, comedic, and I like doing all of them, or a blend of those. And some of the ideas that I had like early on, like I just posted a video yesterday that maybe for like 3, 4 months I had written on my list of things to do. Like I'll just come up with these ideas. So it's really not that much different. Maybe like if you start going like 4 months, 5 months in, it was kind of the same concept. But then, yeah, of course it does evolve, and getting inspiration from other people and getting inspiration from my clients, and a lot of it comes from that too, is like my 9 to 5 and doing therapy. I have my little like sheet, and sometimes a client like today a client said something, and then I like wrote it down of like, oh, this could be something, this could be valuable for other people, like I could do a video on that, put it on my list. And some of them have been on there forever, some of them I put on and do it right away. But yeah, something like that.
That's phenomenal. What have been some of the responses that you get from people? Because this is you're creating content that is so helpful and so meaningful to so many people. Like, you have 1 million followers. I'm sure you're doing tens of millions of views per month, if not more than that. The comments, I know, can get overwhelming at times.
Yeah.
Are people reaching out to you? What What are some of the responses that you've gotten of how your content has helped people? If you have any cool stories, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, well, let me think. Yeah, so I learn a lot. I like to say I've learned more in the last year or so than I've had any year prior, and that is because I put the content out, and then I read the comments or I get emails, and I see patterns, right, of what people are saying, what they struggle with, what they're having difficulty with. What are the topics that are most popular, and why is that? So I've learned a lot, and yeah, I get a ton of emails, and it is pretty sad too. Like I don't really get DMs on TikTok unless I'm like connected with the person, but I have, yeah, I get, I keep my email public, so I get tons of people reaching out. They want help, they want to see me, they have a situation, they want to run by me. So I see patterns in that, and I try to get back to everyone and like at least point them in some direction. Um, but yeah, I can't as a therapist. I can't, it's liability in doing that. And a lot of therapists are probably more cautious than I am. But I do have to be careful in giving advice and the way I give advice. And do I even call it advice? It's really more about, you brought up a topic. Here's my experience and working with clients and my professional experience. I'm not telling you to go do that, but this is just more information for you to make a decision, right? I don't know if I'm correct. I mean, this is just two lines from a live stream or an email that you're sending me. um, yeah, I mean, I've connected, some of my like early followers who've been there from day one, I'm like more connected with, and I've gotten to know them, and, they struggle, and sometimes I'll try to help them out a little bit. I'm more open to helping them or considering them more of a friend, even at this point, which is kind of crazy. Like I have like, I'm like 35 and have internet friends, like,
It's the world that we live in.
right? Yeah. And, it's like, I always thought of that of like people playing video games. They're like lonely and they're chatting with someone in Russia or something like that. Right. And it's like, who knows if they're real or not. But yeah, it's like I actually have, especially with other creators too. Um, but I mean, a couple ones that really stand out to me, are people coming on my live stream and asking, and a lot of it's with addiction. A lot of it, some of the things people really reach out for and want the most help for is either their addiction, more often an addiction of a family member, or a family member struggling with mental health. But I remember one person who, you know, they come in my live stream and they're like, I can't stop drinking. Like, I'm like, okay, well, here, when people come to me and ask me, here's what I tell them. And what's interesting too is like now it's like automatic because I get some of the same questions. So I have these narratives already, like for let's say in a live stream where I could answer that question. Here's my answer that I'll typically give. And so it's made me think about these things more so that I could give people better info. So then I think I told her, hey, like this is my recommendation. When people are in this situation, she goes, thanks so much. A week later, hey, I followed your advice. I'm a week sober. Wow. Right. And
Wow.
then I think she came back to me months later. Hey, I'm still sober. You remember me? I'm like, yeah, I remember you. That's amazing. Right. So, I don't, I don't like think about it that much. It's weird because you're like, oh my God, you're helping so many people. And of course it's what I want, but it's really like, I'm just like doing what I want to do. I love educating, so I'm just like doing what and I probably don't grasp the degree and how my content is helping people or relating with people, until I start seeing those reminders, because it's like it's like my content's been seen more than like a Super Bowl. It's like it's insane. Like, and I don't think about it. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's absolutely insane. And so I don't realize the impact until people tell me, right? Because I'm, quote, helping people I'm this helping profession. And it's kind of been funny too, is like a lot of people who are really into my content are people who are in the field, other like therapists and clinicians. Like
Yeah.
they just find it funny because they could relate with what I'm saying. And then clients find it funny because they could relate. Some of them get pissed off, But like considering the type of content I do, it's like a little bit more on the edge than what a therapist or medical professional would be comfortable doing. Like I definitely ride that edge sometimes
But
and
it's
like
it's
dark humor.
real. It's real though. I think that's what makes it so
Yeah.
powerful and cuts through the noise, right? Like there's
Yeah.
plenty of behavioral health experts on the platform now
Mhm.
as the platform gets adopted by more and more educators, but no one is really at your level. And I think that's because of how real that you're able to get with it. You're not sugarcoating anything.
Yeah.
You're saying it as it is, right? You're speaking your truth, speaking your mind.
Yeah, and everything I say, I mean, I do believe, and I, and people have been a little critical, and sometimes I posted stuff looking back where I'm like, no, that was incorrect, and I'll try to correct that the best I can. So I want to put like good info out. I try not to cut corners, even though like I want to. Sometimes I'm like, all right, fine, I'm gonna go like research this, and okay, I was right, and then sometimes like, oh, maybe I need to tweak it a little bit. Most of the stuff is coming from my head, of things that I've learned. And yeah, so I mean, with the comedy, it's tough because, and that's what I love the most, and why I continue to ride the edge a bit is because not many people combine mental health and addiction with comedy because it's so devastating. Like it's tragic. Mental health. It's people struggle with it, but I really believe in like that people appreciate that, right? Because people aren't willing to do that, right? And like I've always believed in like seeing the humor in tragedy. And the thing with like mental health and addiction is there is so much humor in it. It's like the more tragedy, the more humor, just like the behavior. Like, and I've been there. Had addiction, mental health issues, right? And so, like, there's just certain things that we do that, like, you could kind of poke fun of. And I don't do it in a mean, malicious way, but sometimes people are just not in a place where they can handle that, like most people would say with like some like borderline personality disorder where it's like you're inherently a more sensitive person, right? But there's so much humor that comes from the behaviors. And I think sometimes it's triggering when I like joke about it. And I tell people, look, I joke with love. Like I really care about you folks. Like I want to help. Like I work with a ton of folks with, let's say BPD. And, you know, I I love working with you guys. So there's a lot of stigma around these things. So then I think people project that in my content. I'm joking, oh, you're stigmatizing it. And it's not what I'm trying to do. Right. And so I'd say, in the grand scheme of things, like given the content I do, I would have probably guessed that more people would be offended than actually are. So like the response has been overwhelmingly positive, and then there are some people, and I hate that. Honestly, like it really makes me sad when people don't take it the right way. And I'll see someone maybe duet something, and they'll be like, yeah, I really like this guy, but this one really hurt me. And I try to like reply and be like, look, I am sorry. Cause like I really am. Like I don't want you to take it that way. I want this to be fun. I want this to be funny. I want this to be satirical. I want us to be able to laugh at our pain sometimes. And so I really do feel bad, and I don't want, but at the end of the day, I believe in what I'm doing, and I love what I'm doing, and other people find it positive. And at some point it's like, look, if you can't handle it, it's like, just move on. And, I'm not for you, or I'm not for you right now. You know, when you're in a place where you're not struggling as much, um, you know, come back. And I think you'll find, you'll be able to take it a little differently. So I am overall happy with how it's been received, and that there haven't been too many people really offended. I mean, it's the internet, so of course you'll get a lot of negative, but I don't know, the comments are overwhelmingly positive. Like I'm like to the point I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's incredible. It kind of comes with well, both the nature of the game, right? When you're reaching that many people, it's almost impossible to please every single person.
Yeah.
I think there's a saying that goes, in order to become president, you have to be hated by half of the country, right? And and even more so, how divided the addiction recovery community is. I mean, you have the complete abstinence sobriety side of
Yep.
things,
Yep.
and then you have the medication assisted treatment side of things, and all of these other forms of recovery as well. But it's really a divided community. So you say one thing on one side, the other side is already combative, just due to the nature of it, rather than being together and saying, hey, we're recovering here, we're recovering in our own way. It's just the indoctrination of their form of recovery that I found. So you're
Yeah.
doing a great job overall.
Yeah. And I try to be balanced is because I know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I know what people are going to say. So I try to like address it in the video before they could kind of, because I know it's like, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're going to say. You're going to be upset. So I'm going to clarify. And that's the hard part with like trying to do something in a minute. And that like has been one of the biggest struggles because I could freaking talk forever about any of these things. So it's like, it's been a huge discipline to keep something in under a minute. So how do I address that? How do I, show like, how do I display what I truly think about something? Because like, yeah, for something like what you just mentioned, yeah, absolutely. It's like, for me, it's like stuck in the middle because, I'm someone who believes in abstinence-based recovery, the 12 steps. However, there are some things I'm critical of about it, even though like that has been something that's helped me personally and helped a ton of people that I know. But then also I'm a professional, right? And most of the clients who I see for addiction, I don't even recommend like that, so I try to be balanced and like some people, it's like there's just I don't know, there's a big loss of nuance in our culture. So I try to bring that nuance and I think people respond better to that, to say, hey, here are the pros and cons of this, here are the pros and cons of that. And remember that, this isn't, you know, every approach is not right for everybody. Right. So trying to bring that nuance. And so, and I know it's controversial, and every once in a while I poke the bear with a stick, and try to, like when I talk about things, I talk a lot about like sex positivity, um, critical of some of the ways we view, let's say, sex addiction or porn addiction, and trying to be balanced, or how we view infidelity. And so I know I'm poking the bear with a stick on some of those things, but I also want people to think about it, and I want to challenge the way they think about it. And sometimes, let's say, when I'm talking about, let's say, porn addiction, where it's like, hey, only this percentage of the population struggle with it, yet this many people use it. Hey, it's like alcohol, where many, many people are able to use it safely, but there is a percentage of the population where it's life ruining, right? So how do I acknowledge both of those things, but also saying, hey, maybe it is overblown in our minds, and maybe it is because of societal stigmas that make more people think that it's an issue because we don't talk about it, right? So challenging some of the prevailing narratives. And in mental health and addiction, there are some very, you know, uh, well trotted out narratives that never get challenged. And, it just becomes like a consensus on an issue where it's like not even scientific, right? It's, more moral. And I believe in a lot of it, but some of it I push back on, even against, my fellow creators, because like going back to what you were saying before, there is a huge temptation to go along with the narratives that form with creators and, you know, people who follow mental health and addiction. And you got to be careful, because that will start to shape, because, oh, I'm getting the views and the feedback, and right. And so then you curate your content for that, which I think is okay to agree. Like, is what people want to hear about. If you want to share about it and whatever, that's fine. But I think, there needs to be a little bit more pushback on the narrative. So I've gotten a little bit of trouble there. And I don't know, but overall, I mean, I don't know, maybe some of my peers are just kind of like, don't like me, but I don't know. I mean, it's been positive, connecting with, folks on, other creators, and they've been positive, and we try to support each other and each other's content. I know there's some people that maybe don't like or agree with what I do. But I am really reflective of what I'm doing. And sometimes when I push the line, or sometimes, I will find myself, like, let's say, making a statement that's more absolute at the beginning, or maybe something that isn't as conscientious because I want to get that hook, right? It's like less nuance, like everybody struggle, or like something like that. And I look back, I'm like, that wasn't really probably the best way to do it. So I have to be really reflective. And when people are critical, I really do take that into consideration. And sometimes at the end, I'm like, you know what? I believe what I did was right. I did the right thing. I know it's not everyone's going to love it. And then sometimes I'm like, you know what? I could have done better. I could have said something better. And these criticisms are legit. So I have learned a lot that way too. And, but I really think that we have to be careful about that content curation, and just going with the flow of the narratives, because that just leads to groupthink and people not challenging it. Like there's no intellectual challenge in that. So so I gotta be mindful of that. Where at the beginning too, I kind of found myself doing that. Like, oh, that's what people want to talk. Okay, I'll talk about this. I'll fit in with the narrative to whatever degree and hope I get views. But I find when I do that, it doesn't work. I think there's something maybe disingenuous to that. And so I just try to keep my head down. And if I have a video that gets low views or something, I try to look at it critically and be, okay, why was that? Is it in the way what I was saying, where I was sitting, the way I presented it? And sometimes I'll make a video and be like, okay, it got low views, but you know what? F it. I think it's good. I liked it. I'm going to leave it up. Other people will appreciate it, even if it didn't get all those views. Sometimes just what the algorithm, the mood it's in, sometimes I'll have periods you're saying with those views, or many times I don't have nearly that many views. And sometimes it'll be crazy. Sometimes you'll get in these slumps where it's like clear the algorithm is not in your favor. Like recently I've been in kind of a slump where it's like, okay, these videos normally would have gone viral, and I just got to wait for the tide to turn. And, those same types of videos will then do better, and I could repost them later if I want.
Yeah.
So it's a balance, right?
Yeah, that's really good. And I want to dive a little deeper there
Sure.
on your thoughts on the TikTok algorithm and how that's constantly evolving. What you're seeing, both previously and currently as well, of how you're actually structuring the content to sort of make sure that the algorithm picks it up, or make sure even before the algorithm picks it up that viewers are engaging with it, right? Increasing that watch time, starting with that opening hook,
Mhm.
and how you're actually going about structuring that content. If you're thinking about that in the script writing phase, or how you're actually executing everything.
Yeah, I think it just become natural over time. Like I don't always consciously think about it. I just know, right? Like at the beginning, I know I have to have that hook. And it's not like it's not like disingenuous either. It's like, like I just know, of course, people are scrolling, and
Yeah, the attention
if it
span's
doesn't,
pretty terrible on there. You got to kind of stop that scroll immediately.
yeah, yeah, it is. And and it's fun to do. Like I don't have to change things that much, but I think I've been naturally shaped to do that and have it continued engagement and not be boring. So it's like a challenge in a good way. It's just like you end up making better content because people often speak with their feet. Like if they walk out, right, it's like sometimes it's like it's like music where it's like popular music, right, where like most people like. So is that actually better music? Well, by some measures, yeah. Like the corniest pop music is the most people like it, but then you have like kind of obscure like jazz geniuses or something like that where like most people wouldn't like it, but then there's a percentage of the population that like loves it and thinks it's like brilliant and genius, right? So it's like where do you fit? And so some of the content, I'm not like by any means saying it's like genius or anything like that, but some of the stuff, it's like I know that a segment of people will really appreciate this, and maybe it won't generalize to a larger crowd, and sometimes that's okay. And I kind of the philosophy I try to force on myself is like do what you love, do what feels good, and try. And I always say, like, even if the views aren't there, like keep your head down, don't pay attention as much to that, because then it becomes disingenuous and automatically people will not connect with you, or I'm doing things that are pushing my own morals to get views, and that doesn't feel good either, right? I got to be careful.
Yeah. I want to pivot here into the monetization and business side of
Sure.
things here for a moment. Now, I know you're not using TikTok to actually acquire patients and clients for yourself.
Mm.
But could you talk about how you're the different ways that you're monetizing the platform, monetizing your views, monetizing your authority and personal brand right now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like never the point was to like make a bunch of money directly from it. It's like kind of phase one, if I'm like thinking from a business lens, is like just build a following, get your name out there, like get a brand going, and then the rest will follow. And now this year I am trying to focus a little bit more on, okay, how do I monetize? Because I'm spending like 20 to 30 hours a week my free time doing this. And granted, it's a labor of love, but hey, how can I start turning this into something? Because if I could do that, then I'm able to dedicate more, I could justify dedicating more time to doing this. So the question is, how can I do this as much as possible? But there are other things that I like. I mean, I still like being a therapist. I like being a, clinic manager, housing coordinator, like all these random things that I do. I still like it, but how can I do more of what I really love? And so I think that what TikTok is good, compared to like a YouTube or something that pays more per views, is it gets you visible, right? So if like I have a video going viral, it's like the more emails start coming my way, and more opportunity. So I've done a couple brand deals, and making videos for folks and partnering, and so that can be fairly lucrative, and finding new ways to monetize. But then like the end goal eventually would be getting those books out, um yeah, doing a course or something, something like that, and be able to make it more of a business in that way. But that's kind of my plan, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. Has your book actually launched yet, or is it still in the process?
No, it's one of those things I've been working on for like 3 years on and
Yeah,
off,
sure.
right? So it's just
Uh-huh.
like finding the motivation to do it. And then like I'm kind of a perfectionist and stuff. But I think, like I've basically had like 90% of it done for like a year, and it's just kind of putting the finishing touches on it before then I got to decide, do I submit it to publishers? Um, do I self-publish it? Do I turn it in itself into a course? But I have like all these book ideas over the years that I want to do. So it's like I kind of want to get this one done so I could like move on to the next thing. But like I'm the king of doing that, of like doing something like 3/4 of the way and then getting excited by the next shiny object. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do this. It's like, no, dude, just
This is the
finish
ADHD
this.
way.
100%, 100%. I think like all creators have it for some reason,
Oh yeah,
but
for sure, for sure.
so just get this shit done. And we'll see. We'll see if it goes anywhere, see if anyone wants to pick it up. But like, yeah, year one is like, if I'm looking at that business lens, is like just forget about money, build a foundation, build a following, hit those goals, hit 1 million followers, get verified, like these are the more meaningful things to build a foundation. And then when I do go to submit that book, nowadays, it's not always about the content of what you do, but like who you are, like for better or worse. It's like you kind of have to have both, where it's like I was talking with a friend the other day, and she auditioned for The Voice twice. She's like a musician, and both times she got like really far to that last step. And she was telling me at one point they were like listening to her sing while they were scrolling her socials, right? So like it's like not
Really?
exact. Yeah. So it's like you have to like be able to have a good voice, right? But then they also look at, right, how many views can we get? Do they have a following? Will the following come watch the show? Do they have proof of concept? Because yeah, nowadays everything is so social media, brand focus, influencer. So it's like you kind of have to have both to some degree. I mean, I'm sure if the book is really good. Maybe some people pick it up, but that's what I was saying. Like at the very beginning, that was the because the beginning, like that was the idea, sort of was like do it for business purposes, but then really quickly it turned into something else, and I realized what I'm doing is it's not about money. It's not about it's about just getting reach to as many people as possible, and two is just like scratching this creative itch that I've had that I've never been able to find an outlet for. You know,
Yeah, I think that's why you've had so much success, to be honest, is because you're just giving. You're giving so much valuable information away for free. And I think that's a problem that I see on a lot of business TikTok accounts that haven't had that much success, or they're sort of floundering. They've been on it for maybe a couple months and they're selling too much, to be frank. Every video that they put out is like an infomercial, and it's less so about who they're trying to reach and more so about them. I'd love to hear your thoughts and advice for anybody listening, for the business owner that maybe hasn't given TikTok a chance yet, or the business owner that's been on there for a little bit and they haven't had any traction. What advice would you give them?
yeah, it's tough, and I'm guessing it's like the more creators is it harder to build an account now than before? I mean, I don't know, but I guess like if I had to think about it, I say like think about why you do what you do, right? Why are you in this line of work? What is the underlying passion there? And try to provide value for that person and not necessarily just try to sell, because that'll come, right? And I mean, I don't know whether it's a beauty product or just try to connect with people, try to connect with them emotion. I think a lot of it's emotion too. It's like, how do you feel watching this video? Is it funny? Is it entertaining? Like, does it, what does it feel when you watch that? Does it get you excited? So how can you connect with people's emotions? And yeah, again, I don't have as much experience as far as like the doing something to sell, but I think if you keep that secondary and you make the content first and create quality and provide value and build that foundation, then the rest may come later. Then you could start selling, and you don't have to sell because people are going to know what you're doing, and your audience is then connecting with you for a reason because it's something they're interested in. And eventually, so yeah, I guess just do what you love and do what you're passionate about, I guess, is maybe it's a little cliche, but and then as far as just like execution goes, it's and you could yeah, you kind of when we talked before, I was thinking like, if I'd like go back and do it again, although this is something I did. As far as like going back and doing it again, it'd be like lights, yeah, sound, make it look professional. But TikTok, you don't want to make it too professional sometimes. Some people get away with it, but I find that like it doesn't go with that TikTok vibe. It's like don't use the fancy letters, because then they're like, oh, they didn't make it in TikTok, right? There is, I think, something to be said about not trying too hard, because people pick up on that too. But you still want to have, right, like when you start scrolling TikTok, you'll know immediately if someone has a following, and then subconsciously you're thinking like, okay, if this video is like dark and dingy and doesn't sound good and they're talking slowly, and you're finding yourself, because you'll notice that you'll want to scroll real quick, and then that's something you could learn of why that is and go back and watch, okay, why is it that it didn't connect with me right away emotionally? Why did I scroll away 10 seconds in? Was it just kind of too slow or breaks? So a lot of times it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. So make it look like half decent. But then I think, the probably one of the biggest helps in some ways is consuming content. And you don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I get an inspiration all the time from watching other people's content. I'm not big on trends. Even people are like, you should do more, and I'm just like, sometimes if I'm
You'll
really
do it just fine
inspired.
without the trends.
Exactly. And it's like, sometimes I think it's fun to challenge and put a twist if it really hits and not try to force it. Because you see people try to force it and like the words come up too quickly and they like leave too quickly. And you're like, all right, you just tried to put too much into a 3-second video to like match a trend to what you're trying to communicate. But still, there's other ways to get inspiration from watching other people's content. And I think of it like this, like like a lot of people like do just copy stuff and they do well doing it, but it's like, are you going to really feel good, or maybe you just don't give a shit, right? And you're just like kind
Yeah,
of business focused.
not
And
really authentic to you.
yeah, I mean, there's some people too. There's like one dude that like is in our space, behavioral health, who just started copying videos, and and I don't know for sure, but a lot of people were saying like he's kind of leveraging that to make money putting people in treatment, which is like illegal. Now, I'm not going to say his name, and I don't know if he's actually, it's a serious allegation, but I mean, the dude legitimately copied one of my videos word for word. I've never seen anything like it, that one of my videos did well.
I think I know who it is. I'll chat with you about it afterwards. I'm curious if it's who I think it is. But
Probably. I mean, not many people are that blatantly shameless,
I think I
but
actually saw your video where you called him out on it. So
yeah, that's that one. But so it's like, yeah, you can go that route, and maybe you should go that route, right? Of like doing what works for other people. People do really well with that, and sometimes it's funny. I have some friends on there who I love their content, and it's all based on taking a trend and how do you make it mental health focused, and it sometimes works. Um, so you could, yeah, so I mean that's one way you could go about it as well. But learning from, I guess what I was just trying to say is, yeah, just learn from other people's content. Oh, what I was trying to get at is, right, like I love to cook. Like that's one of my favorite hobbies, right? And before, like it's really important sometimes at the beginning, right, that I shouldn't be deviating from recipes at the beginning, right? I should learn how to cook something like based on a recipe from another chef, or something like that, right? Not that I'm a chef per se, but you learn something and you take all this information in from the people who know what they're doing. And then once it's in your head, then you're able to innovate and be creative, right? So that information is coming in, but it doesn't have to come out in the same way. It could be in your own way, and it may not even connect. You may not even be able to make a direct connection to where you saw something, but you could create your own original thing from all this aggregated knowledge that you have of seeing thousands and thousands of videos, right? It's, and like you're saying at the beginning, you're like, how did I get better at this? It's like, well, hours and hours and hours of consuming content and making content and seeing what works. And, it's funny. I posted like a video the other day, like a repost of a video, like did pretty well. But like I went and it was, I don't know, maybe from like 6, 9 months ago or something. And I'm just like, yeah, just like how I was presenting it, how like the timing of it was just so much different, and the lighting, and it's like, wow, like I've definitely, you don't really realize it until you go back and look. It's like losing weight, like you don't really notice it because it's slow, and then all of a sudden you look in the mirror and your friends are like, whoa, dude, you lost a lot of weight. It happens gradually, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm pretty damn good at this. Sweet.
yeah. Evan, as someone who inspires millions of people with your content on TikTok every month, who inspires you, and what are some of your favorite creators on the app, whether they're related to you or just like in a totally different niche or space? Who are some of your favorite creators you like to watch?
Yeah. So like a lot of the content I like to consume most is outside of mental health. Although like I think it is important to see what my peers are doing. And I've learned from a lot of them who are further along than me. And a lot of them I do really enjoy their content. Um, but I don't know, like I like a lot of the comedians, and there's some of the comedy ones, like PDUSA, if you've ever seen him,
Love PD. Oh my gosh.
or
So
like
his
or like
little universe
Charlie.
is wild.
Yeah, or like Charlie Barons and stuff like that. I can't get enough of his stuff. If you're a Midwesterner, especially. I don't know. I watch all like history too. Like I love like some of the history podcasters. So it's really weird. I could like have them like I could watch these folks and then decide just like I don't pick up on their handle. Where it's like, wait, I know them really well, but like, wait, what's their handle again? Yeah, so like some history podcasts that I really, or not podcasts, history creators. Um, some of the, like, yeah, some of there's like some of the other community, like like Basic Starter Kit is. You ever come across? He like
No, I don't
recently
think
had
so.
some videos go viral, like the TikTok Creator Awards, for like worst creators or something like that. He did this
Oh,
like whole
that's
like
funny.
fake Oscar series, and then he did like the Karen Gym training. He got on a hot streak for a minute, but like he's someone I connected with a long time ago that I really like and appreciate their content. But yeah, I don't know too many. I could be. It's one of those things I could hard to think about, but I could probably list 1,000 people who I really follow and appreciate what they do and learn from them. And I
Yeah.
do learn a lot from my other creators too, like Dr. Patrick Kennedy, who does like ADHD stuff, like some of these real whiz. It's like for me, it's like I know like a pretty good amount about a lot. Right. I'm not like a huge specialist. Probably addiction would be the thing I really know most about. And a couple other topics where I maybe peak a little bit higher in knowledge, but some of the real specialists who are like, I had like Distilled Science on my podcast. It has nothing to do with mental health. We just talked about COVID and some of the science-based ones too. But there's a lot.
That's phenomenal. Evan, this was so great. So much valuable information and insight here. I can't thank you enough for sharing it with me and sharing it with all of the listeners here. How can people get a hold of you or watch your content if they want to learn more and dive deeper in? Where would you like to direct people?
Yeah, I would say, TikTok is obvious, where I have the most content up. And I'd say check out my YouTube. I'm really trying to invest more in that, where I could like go deeper into some of these topics. So check that out too. But if you go to my TikTok, there's the link tree in the bio, connects to everything, my website, I have my email on there. So it's open, you could reach out to me and I probably will get back. I mean, it take a while, but I'll get back to you, and direct you whatever you want to do. But yeah.
That's awesome. And I'll have all these links in the show notes of this episode. Evan, thank you so much again for jumping on Business Talk with me. I appreciate it. Any final words?
No, man, I appreciate you having me on. And, I think it's funny that, like, when creators connect, it kind of starts off with like, you follow me, I follow you, and then you comment on something, and then eventually someone asks someone else on their podcast, right? So, you come up on my page all the time for a reason, so I've gotten a lot of value from your content as well. So I appreciate that. And
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. All right.